year.
I was so interested in seeing what him and Quinn Ewers do this year. There's been so much hype.
We have where's G. Dangerous running back and Blake Corum?
Maryland's gone. Talia Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
A little too backyard footballers.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, Sean Spencer, one half of this dynamic duo that is Let's Talk Football. And it's Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. So you know who I'm with. My guy and the host of the newest, hottest Detroit Lions show, Restoring the Roar, Alex Loosemore. What up, Alex?
Not too much, man. Excited to start our new segment here, talk some wide receivers today, and we're getting closer to draft time, man. Closer and closer.
Yes, absolutely. And today being April 1st, happy April Fool's Day. I'm not going to fool you because there's a lot of this stuff on here. I understand how being fooled takes effect. One of your guys, Hunter Dickinson, we saw that he was in the transfer portal, and all of a sudden there's this random report, and I put it out, and then our guy Foob said, tomorrow's April Fool's Day, right? And I was like, gullible right there. That's me.
Well, and then I saw that, and I was like, okay, like, is it true? Is it not? And then yesterday we signed a 5-star quarterback, Michigan did, and I was like, okay, like, is this legit? Is it like even that? I was just like, oh, come on, man. Like, but it was legit. Yes. Jaden Davis is a Michigan Wolverine.
Ooh, interesting. So is he nipping the heels of JJ McCarthy?
Well, we got to see because JJ's draft eligible after this season. So, there's the whole situation of if he plays well enough, he could go after this year, and then Davis walks right into that starting role.
Right.
Or you could have JJ come back for his senior year, and then it's a competition, or you redshirt Davis and JJ plays his senior year, and then he walks in as a redshirt freshman in 2026. Yeah. So it's a very interesting scenario. Going on here. But it's two solid quarterbacks. I'm excited.
Right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Quinn Ewers and Archie Manning at Texas isn't the only potential QB conversation, controversy, whatever you want to call it, coming up, man. Michigan might have or they just might have next best thing. You let JJ play those years. Hopefully he, gets you farther than what, you have been doing. And then you let another guy who has the same kind of ability, same caliber come in right behind him. And then there you go.
Here's hoping.
right. Here's hoping you guys can stick it to the Buckeyes. Yeah,
here's hoping.
Right. Hey, this is Let's Talk College Football. We appreciate you being back. We've been here since the end of the regular college football season, but as we know, there is no end to the college football season. If the games aren't being played, then there's coaches leaving, the transfer portal, spring games, the draft, pro days, all this great stuff going. So we're definitely coming to bring you a lot of that good noise. Obviously, we talk quarterbacks, we talk running backs, we've talked O-linemen, and I know my guy was giddy on that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's the specialty. But before we get into that, this week we're going to talk wide receivers. Before we get into that, we ended the show last week, and there was little technical difficulties. I apologize as my mic came out, but I couldn't hear my guy. But there's something that him and I and our guy Will talk about on a consistent basis off of here. Yeah. NCAA 14 or NCAA revamped. We're in the dynasty mode, and I've been talking to you. You got you guys at JMU. It was rough in the beginning, but it looks like you guys it's looking up right now, right?
Yeah. So we finished the season. That would be 11-2 last season. We were 11-0, hosted Florida, and lost a heartbreaker 56-49. We had like 4 turnovers, brought it back in the end, just couldn't get the onside kick. So what I'm doing is I do a home and home. Yeah. And then if it's 1-1 after that, then I'll do a neutral site game year 3.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So I lost that game to Florida. was the the 4th seed going into conference championship weekend. I beat up on Southern Alabama.
Obviously.
1 seed Georgia lost to 6 seed Oklahoma, and Army was 2 seed. 3 seed Miami lost to like 11 seed Clemson, I want to say.
Okay.
And so I thought we would hop in and play Army.
Right.
Oklahoma jumped us beating the number 1 team, which I was like, okay.
Looking
at that, like,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it sucks, but it is what it is. So then it was just like, whatever, bowl game, don't care. Like, played Baylor in the Sugar Bowl, but I just simmed it, I lost.
Yeah.
And then started the season just outside the top 25. I started off with Florida week 2. Went to the Swamp.
Yeah.
Lost another heartbreaker.
No.
51-48.
No.
They hit a last-second field goal as time expired to win it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So lost that series 0-2. It's done. I'm kind of glad to be done with Florida.
Yeah.
Had a home and home with TCU. Beat them last year. Won pretty convincingly this year, 41-24. Ended that home and home. And then my other home and home. So what I do is I'll just go to one of my open weeks, and I'll just, however many FBS teams are there, I don't include the FCS ones. I just tell Siri to give me a number between 1 and however many teams there are, and that's the team I get.
Yeah.
So my other home and home was Ohio from last season into this season.
Okay.
I beat them 56-7 this year. That one's over.
Right.
My other home and home, the randomizer chose it, is Army. So,
but this is number 1 ranked Army, right?
The reigning national champion Army Knights. They're currently ranked 6th going into week 6.
Yeah.
I'm 3-1, ranked 20th in the country now.
Yeah.
I played them this week.
Oh.
So after this show's done, I'm going to play them and see how I can do. But yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been a lot of fun rebuilding them. They were a 1-star school. Now I think I'm up to a 4-star.
Okay.
So recruiting's getting easier. Had a top 5, top 10 class last year. So the rebuild's going well.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Hey, and shout out to the Dukes of JMU, who actually, from where we live in Virginia, or where I live, where Will grew up, that's about 2 hours out from us. So Will had some time over there. I spent some time out there. 60-40 female to male ratio. Love that place. Yeah. But yeah. Get as far as Army, get prepared to expand that option.
Yeah. And my run defense hasn't really been tested because I've been high powered offense again this year. So my running defense is like 15th in the country, but it's because teams have had to pass so early that we'll see how it goes.
Right. It's just like watching paint dry. It's just like dive, option, dive, and you're like, I got them all these downs, and all of a sudden they break one for 50, and it's just like it's all for naught. Here we go.
Yeah, running a lot of a 4-4 defense.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. Linebackers crashing interior. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I too am with a what started off as a 1 or 2 star team in Temple out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Had my guy that I recruited my first year. He was an 80 athlete, Spencer Hamilton. Came in, balled out, did all this great stuff. Since we played in the American Conference, those, I get the South Floridas, the FAUs, the teams that aren't that great. So once we started building up the teams, we started to run over those. But like you, there's those first couple weeks where you're playing the SEC, the Big Ten, and all that. So I had a couple stints. We played in Ole Miss this past year. I was able to get the dub, but the year before we played, I think it was like Georgia or something, and it wasn't even pretty. Like by halftime, I was on my third quarterback. One got hurt, and the second one was just atrocious. So I go for the third one, who has like a 89 speed and acceleration. So all we're doing is running options. We're dropping back, letting everybody get deep, and then just juking out the sometimes a QB contained guy. If I can get past him, which isn't as easy as it looks.
Yeah.
He'll carve parallel with you, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I should have been able to get past this guy.
Especially when you're playing in Georgia and Alabama, like where they've got 90 speed guys everywhere.
Exactly. So finally was able to get over the hump. Like I said, this past year was able to beat Ole Miss. I think we had to, I think we played an ACC like a Georgia Tech or somebody like that, able to beat them. Then obviously started off, I believe 24th, was able to get through unscathed in the regular season. Obviously, we got to championship weekend. We don't have a championship game, so we were ranked 5th, and it just we were never able to move up. And we also had a 6-6. Who was it? It was UConn, and obviously that thing was over by halftime. I think it was like 35-0. Like we were just running all. They just don't have a good team, and it just didn't help. It didn't help us. I told you about my quarterback, Spencer Hamilton. He was on this, finally getting recognition. He's up here on this Heisman run, and then 2 weeks out from the end, 2 or 3 weeks out of the regular season, he breaks his leg. Comes back in the game right before championship weekend, has a balls out, dominates, does all that stuff, and then it didn't help. I mean, he was able to move up at least like second or third in the Heisman, but it doesn't matter. He left. This year, Alex, I'm not going to lie. It's hard to replace the production of my guy.
I'm feeling that.
Yeah. So I went to, formation subs, and I got like 3 or 4. I got 3 quarterbacks, my top 3 quarterbacks in at some way, shape, or form. Like I got one guy that's just goal line, one guy that's getting all my deep passes, and then one that's just my interior option guy, which is good. But then on the other side, you're not getting no one guy is getting major stats.
Yeah, so, you're not going to get a Heisman or any like you're not going to build a guy into a draft prospect, anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of me is like, man, it's because one of the guys is an athlete. Part of me is like, man, maybe I need to switch him to wide receiver or something like that. But we're winning games, albeit against, like I said, the FAUs, UConns, and stuff like that. But it's still kind of, you want your guy. You want the one guy. Like I had Spencer for 4 years. He was my guy until he got hurt. So you really notice that drop off. Like there's a gap between what he was at that point to where we are now. So,
well, I had a 98 overall quarterback, Jason Graham, who last year won the Heisman.
Yes,
and he was like backup, and then it was just like his senior season was finally his turn to play. Yep. I was like, okay, let's see what we got in him. And man, did he ball out. And then this year, my backup from last year turned into a 92 this year. Ooh, but it's just like something's off.
Yep.
Like there's times where I'll turn to my 78 overall redshirt freshman because he plays better at certain points. Like it's basically. Just I miss Graham. I miss Graham for sure.
Oh yeah. And it's not just that quarterback. I also had this wide receiver named Masterson that was just, fly. I put him in the slot. He was a bigger guy, and just put him on that nickel and just go fly routes and just kind of throw it over top. When Hamilton had it, where he can loop it over there. Yeah. Now with these other guys, like I don't have a Masterson, so I have a decent crop of receivers, mid 70s type. I have one guy that's like an 82 or something like that. Yeah. But they just don't have the speed or acceleration. They can't separate from guys. So passes that like were just, the guy had a step. Masterson had a step on the guys a year ago. Now they're contested. I have thrown a lot more interceptions. It's a struggle, man.
Yeah, well, and that's gonna be me next year because like I've got all the speed I could want at receiver, like tons of 94, 95, 96 speed. But I only have the one guy, like Gabriel Johnston for me as a senior this year, and he's 6'5" with that 94 speed.
Ooh.
Like he's Calvin Johnson out there.
Right.
And he's a senior, so he's gone next year. Oh, and then I think my next biggest receiver I've got is like 6 foot. So I don't have that big outside guy. I just got to hope that everyone just burns by somebody to get that. I don't got a jump ball guy next year. So it's going to hurt.
Oh, yeah. I'm starting a true freshman. Okay. Literally, he was like number 1 or 2 wide receiver. I was able to get him. But I'm like, you got to start now. Like, we don't we cannot afford, unless we're going to run the option all day, we cannot afford to have anybody else in. So, hey, he's doing a little bit. But like I said before, we have 3 quarterbacks. each guy may have his dip favorite. One of my tight ends are getting a lot of love. It's just we're winning, but I'm a stats guy, so I just want build it out. I look at the Heisman every single week, and I'm like, no, we're not in it this week. We're not in it this week. All right.
For me, especially being such a big offensive line guy, my offensive line is young, and it's still like I got a couple guys that are in the 80s, but the rest is high 70s. So it's been a struggle because I'll sit there and like the deep pass develops, but when I'm playing Florida and TCU and they've got those very good defenses, it's like I want to launch the ball down the field and get those chunk plays, but I got to sit and take those short passes because I don't got the time to let the deep pass develop. Like, it's so frustrating.
I find myself watching the instant replay more because when I'm playing quarterback, I'm really kind of looking downfield. And then all of a sudden, you just get smacked. And you're like, what happened? He was open. What happened? And I find myself looking at the instant replay like, number 57, like, my guard, like, what are you doing? And the guy just spin moves around him.
I will scream at my TV if it's just like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, it's double team and he'll just like slide right through. I'm like, guys, come on. Like,
right.
I am like yelling, and most of the time it's either at my quarterback or my offensive line right now. Like, that's what it is. The rest of my team, I'm like, okay, you're good.
Right,
it's quarterback and offensive line.
Well, with me, my position is running back.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's a lot of times where they'll have the running back do like the little fake block and then a run out. I'll sit here and change the route to just blocking. And then he'll sit there and it's like the guy's coming off the corner and you just see him like go around him. And I'm like, step in his way, do something. And you just see the replay with the lineman and the running back both looking down at the quarterback. The quarterback slamming the ball down. Like, what are you doing? Oh man. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we might have another show in an NCAA 14 Dynasty mode. We might need to get Will on and just do this because I can talk about this. I know you can talk about it for days. So I love it. But you know why we're here. We know why you guys have come to join us. The draft position analysis that we have been touched on. Like I told you before, we just did the O-lineman, did the interior and the tackles. We've done the running backs. We've done the quarterbacks. Now let's go ahead and go to the divas, a position that last year we saw, and we'll discuss that a little bit later, but last year there was a huge run on these early.
And I mean, a solid crop too.
Yes, absolutely. So right off top, you go back and look at last year's group receivers. You got the Jahan Dotson, the Olaves, the Londons, Jamison Williams. You guys picked up. You got a number of solid guys that in their prime, and Collins were the best, and made a name for themselves in the league last year. When you compare this crop to that, or what are you thinking? Are you thinking this might be a little bit better, or the crop last year, like you said, was elite? So what is your thoughts?
For me, comparing this year's class to last year's class, last year it was heavy on the elite tier guys for me.
Yep.
There was 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 guys that were like, okay, this could be a number one guy.
Yeah.
And then it kind of fell off a bit for me. Where this year, I've got about 5-ish guys that could be number ones.
Yeah.
But then it's deep in that number 2 category. Like, this receiver class goes probably about 15, 20 deep. It's very, very solid. Like, normally I'll list the top 5, but I had no problem listing like 10 with a few sleepers. Like, it was just like, this is a very, very good class. I expect probably 10 to 12 gone by the end of day 2.
Oh, absolutely. And with this class, the number one word that comes to mind is contribution. Like, some of the guys might be big, some of the guys might be smaller, but each of these guys, you bring them in on your team and put them in the right situation. And I mean, look, we saw how it panned out last year. These guys, I think, are going to help some solid teams. I'm very interested to see where, especially like our top of the top go. But then also, obviously, you got, Zay Flowers, who's, if not in your top, right outside. Josh Downs at the UNC. A couple of these guys that have elite ability, but might not have been looked at, or just because of who we have ahead of them, they just got pushed like right at the top.
That's
5.
exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, let's go into it. Who is your cream of the crop top 5 wide receivers coming into this year's draft?
So number 5 for me is your guy Josh Downs. He cracked the top 5. He's so good. He's going to be an absolute difference maker. I like him in the slot, and I like him to be lethal in the slot.
Yeah.
And I think he's a first-round guy.
Yeah.
I think you're looking, especially with how many teams need a receiver this year, like if you put him in New York for the Giants, that is a difference maker for Daniel Jones. I love that slot there. Number 4 for me is Zay Flowers. They both cracked my top 5. Burner. Absolute burner. This guy can fly. If he was a couple inches bigger, he's that outside demon. But again, this is another guy that's going to be lethal in the slot. And just torching those safeties down the middle of the field. I like him. If you put him to learn from Keenan Allen in Los Angeles for the Chargers.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And then you have Mike Williams still on the outside. That's Justin Herbert's going to be a happy dude. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But then these top 3 kind of separate themselves for me. And it's a pretty big gap. Number 3 for me, I've got Jordan Addison. Okay. Last year's Bletnikoff winner when he was with Pickett in Pittsburgh. Upgrades the quarterback, goes to Caleb Williams in USC. Has another phenomenal season. This guy, it's a lot of slot guys this year just based on size. He could be a number 1 from the slot. Think of a Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
A more athletic Cooper Kupp. That's what I see with Jordan Addison. This guy is going to ball in the NFL pretty much wherever he goes. Number 2 for me is the only real big guy I have in my top 5, Quentin Johnston from TCU. Big, fast, jump ball catcher. Like there's nothing he can't do. It's just number 1 for me is my number 1 from before the season. And him not playing much this season didn't change that. But Quentin Johnston, I expect him to be gone by 15. I expect 2 receivers to be gone in the top 15. And my other one's Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. He was the best receiver in 2021. I know he didn't get to play much in 2022. All that did was gave the other players a chance to improve their draft stock. That's all it is. Turn on that Rose Bowl game from, I guess, technically 2022, but and I saw this guy firsthand torch defenses all throughout 2021. This guy is an elite receiver, the best route runner in this draft without question. And whoever gets him is getting a dynamic weapon in the slot. I think he's a little too small to play outside, but with his route running, you could get away with it, kind of like a Golden Tate when we played him outside. But the dude is phenomenal. He very well could go in the top 10.
Yeah.
And he should. He's a top 10 talent.
I was about to say, think about that crop of receivers a couple years ago at Ohio State. With Jackson Smith and Jigba, you got Olave, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, right? Like, I mean, elite and all top of the line. I remember they did like a little biopic there in the middle of one of the seasons, and they were just like, we're just challenging each other. Like, the only competition we have is in-house. Like, they were that
and
good.
They weren't wrong about that. Like,
right. And so, I 100% agree with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do it. I know I'm a Tar Heel guy, but I'm going to be honest with you. I got Josh Downs outside the top 5, just outside, but he's outside. I got Zay Flowers at my 5, like you. I mean, he's just moved up, especially in this offseason, and starting to watch his tape and watch his ability. I love what you're saying about him potentially being in the slot. I mean, this guy can move. He's got speed, and he's one of those that I think you can kind of hide in motion, and then all of a sudden comes off, hits something quick, and then just takes off down the field. Number 4 for me, and this might be biased because of one game, and I hate to do this, but whenever you see this, you just got to, if anything that makes you, especially us, you just sit back and you're like, that's NCAA 14 production right there. Jalen Hyatt. 5 TDs in one game. Anytime a man gets 5 touchdowns in a game, I mean, the rest of the season is moot because that game, if you can bring out that kind of production, and a team that we saw vastly improved, and in my opinion, if you really look at it, I don't know that he's. I don't want to say he's not the best on the team, but my 7 is Cedric Tillman. So they had elite quality wide receivers in there, but when you have production in a game like this against the talent that he had it against, I got to put you at my number 4 for Jordan Hyatt.
Hyatt's number 6 for me. He fell just outside just because of that. Yeah,
there it is. Number 3, I agree. Jordan Addison. Like you said, Blitnikoff winner last year out of Pittsburgh. He had Pickett with him. I don't know if you could say he dropped because coming in, he was probably my 1 and my 2. But the only thing that I really had an issue with is that he was so great last year that it was almost like Jadeveon Clowney when he had that great junior year, then came back to senior year and didn't do as much, didn't have a bad season, but you're so, you look so much at the season before that it
same
can make
thing as Will Anderson this year. Exact same thing.
Yeah. So Jordan Addison, wherever he goes, I know our buddy Sid wants him to come back with his college quarterback in Pittsburgh. I know he was talking about that. But wherever he goes, I think he's definitely going to be a great contributor. I mean, like I said, last year he was best wide receiver in the nation, and he has that ability to bring it to the table. So anybody who gets him is definitely getting a stud. And look, my 1 and 2 is similar to yours. I have Jackson Smith and Jigba at 2, and this is just purely because of similar what we just talked about with him not being on the field. That's how I just feel like Quentin Johnson went up. But still, you are getting a guy that is top 15, top 20 talent, and he's going to day 1 starter. You can stick him in the lineup, and he's going to contribute. So absolutely Jackson Smith and Jigba too. And then I just don't feel like we can overlook the year that Quentin Johnson had. You have Max Duggan. Right. You have Max Duggan. You have obviously talked about Vila on the line last week. Kendre Miller, that defense, they shocked the world. But in order to do that, you got to have a stud. You have to have a dog outside. And he's got that. You got that in Quentin Johnston. And look, I'm eager to see where he goes because on some of these teams in the league, he could be, you might potentially put him as your number 1, and he has the ability to take a game over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you work the ball to him and get him with a good quarterback. So, yeah, Quentin Johnson's definitely by number 1. But, yeah, I'm not too far off. I mean, our things are fairly similar. Jalen Hyatt, I had to move in here. And for me, I mean, maybe it's that just the bias of the one game. Yeah, I know it's like, it's just one game. I know. But it was against Alabama.
Yeah.
It was a game they needed to have. And after you get 1 touchdown, after you get 2, and even 3, there's a point where the entire stadium is saying you're getting the ball, and everybody knows it. And then they get 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Drop the mic. What are we talking about here? So hopefully it comes to fruition. Hopefully these guys ball out like we're saying. But yeah, that's my top 5. But like you said, the next group ain't that far off per se. 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2, and then 3 is pretty similar. And then it kind of dips. But then that next group is still kind of in that second tier.
For me, it's 4 through 9 is that second tier, and it's all razor thin. All these guys can go late first to second round easily.
Oh yeah. So let's go right into it. Who is right outside our top 5? Like I mentioned earlier, my guy Josh Downs, and I'm going to tell you why. The thing that hurts is the size. He's not big. He's a smaller guy, but do not let that fool you. The speed is otherworldly. The guy has ability. I know he's 5'9", but he's got 4.4 speed. He has ability, but the thing that I think is going to push him at the next level is that he's not just the wide receiver. You can put him on special teams, and he's going to make a difference. I don't know how many times that he was able to flip the field position for us and change the game. Not to mention the games that he had against the App States and even Notre Dame when we were down, he was helping us to come back into it. So I have to put him there. Then a lot of teams we've talked about their quarterback over there at Houston, Nathan Tank Dell. I mean, again, another 5'8" guy, runs a 4.4 speed. But when you have receivers like this that have been playing in this pass offense, playing Clayton Tune as his quarterback, another quarterback that might be a sleeper, these type of guys are somebody that you have to focus on and pay attention. And defenses need to at least get one or two guys on. I watched. They have those little things where they do like route tutorials or whatever, and they showed him doing routes in the combines and stuff. And the way that he sets up a defender, where he sits there and gives them maybe the little head jerk or the dead leg to one side and then just cuts it, that's creating the separation that's going to be huge in the NFL. If he's able to get on a linebacker, able to get on, a safety or a nickel corner, where he can sit there and move them so they're going a whole other way, turn left and get that quick catch right there. And then I think for me, I mentioned Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee. He's got the size at 6'3" through 213, 4.5 speed. I thought coming into this season, he was better. Obviously, the game where, Hyatt got the 5 TDs, that put it over the top for me. And, Cedric Tillman, I felt like kind of got, I don't want to say he got lost in all of that, but anybody that gets him, they're not going to be disappointed. No. And then my next two, Marvin Mims Jr., A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry, obviously 6'4", almost 200 pounds. It still runs a 4.4. Marvin Mims, 5'11", 183, but running a 4.38. I mean, just pick one. All right. These guys are going to contribute. They're going to be big parts of your team. And then there's still some guys in there that I'm still like, maybe I'll push you up. Man. But who's right outside your top 5?
So for me, the Tennessee boys come pretty early. Jalen Hyatt, like I said, is my number 6. Keyshawn Boutte out of LSU is my number 7. Yes. I loved him right off the start of this season, and he balled out. He had a very good year again. With sometimes questionable quarterback play. I'll give Jalen Daniels a bit of credit, but he was suspect at times.
So real quick, I have a guy that's like that. Great athletic ability, but some of the passes you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But I think he's a second round guy, 6 foot, so he can play outside for you. Cedric Tillman is number 8 for me. Everything you said. He's still a guy. He might slide into the first round still. We don't really know. Like if you look at the back end of the first round there, like at Kansas City, if they go wide receiver, they could use that bigger body outside guy. Tillman definitely fits the bill in Kansas City there.
Absolutely.
I love the fit there. Number 9 for me is Tank Dell. Again, everything you said. And number 10 for me is Marvin Mims.
Oh, yeah. Love that speed. Love what they're bringing. And again, like we said, 4 to 10, you're not going wrong if you're picking these guys up. They're going to be contributors to your team.
Absolutely.
I do wonder. I mean, like we talked about multiple times, it has the transition. You have to be good. You have to get with the right system, obviously. And if you're super far on the depth chart, you might not get time. But when you look at these two lists, and I mentioned this with Josh Downs, who on here is going to need to have maybe more on the table? Who's going to need to, maybe potentially like I love Downs, I love Zay Flowers, but they might need to come in on some gimmick plays. They might need to come in just because of the size and the speed is legit, but they might need to play punt return or kick return, man. Who do you think maybe the more they can do helps their draft stock?
Yeah, absolutely. Flowers and Downs. For me, looking further down the list, a guy like Parker Washington's the same thing.
Yep.
I love what he brings to the table. Xavier Hutchinson, same kind of thing. Like all these guys, even Ronnie Bell from Michigan, they're all super versatile guys. Might not be first round guys, all of them, but they're going to be guys that they're going to make the roster because of everything they can do. There might be situations where there's 5 better receivers, but the versatility they bring as a returner, as a blocker, as all the other stuff that goes into the wide receiver position, these guys are going to make an impact one way or another.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely take a look at that and look towards that, and you can't go wrong. And shout out to our guy Scott Thaler jumped on here, man. You guys started early. Yes, hey, Saturday mornings, we got to, and we know during the regular season, you start at 10, go to 11, you got about an hour to get yourself prepped, and then game time starts. So we're just trying to bring you guys in to the game in a couple months.
Yeah.
So, hey, and Scott, pay attention, man, because hopefully Cooper Kupp comes back healthy, but you're going to need some of these guys. Yeah. You're going to need some help at wide receiver. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's funny you just got in, Scott, because we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Yeah, buddy. That was Let's Talk Football Sunday preview, where, we do similar to what we do here during the college football season. We preview the games coming up, who you should look out for. Nick has a little Nick's picks. Dylan talks about his punters that he loves, and Nate questions everything. But that's the way we do it. Let's go.
I love it.
Let's absolutely go. So, we are talking wide receiver. I'm your boy, Sean Spencer, my guy, Alex Loosemore. And we are trying to bring you guys into who's going to get drafted, who's going to get picked up. We talked about our top 5 and who's right outside our top 5. Now, let's look into the sleepers. Let's look into the guys that might not get all of the attention, or just might be in the shadow of the top 10 guys. I mean, let's be honest. You can go through this list, and I love this because this is a list of guys that we've been watching for 3-4 years come up. So some of these guys, a couple years ago, we talked about Jordan Addison, Blitnikoff, top of the line, but then their last year might not have been what it was. I can think personally out of Virginia, I think this guy named Contavian, Thompson?
Yeah. I believe
his name is. And Taven Thompson out of Virginia balled out 2 years ago. I mean, over 100, over 1,000 receiving yards. Over 70, 80 catches, like double-digit touchdowns. Was just a monster. Then they got a new coach last year. Their quarterback just didn't pan out for him, and so it was a struggle. But you're still getting a guy that's got the ability, he's got the size, and this guy can play. But again, he's just not, because of the production and maybe what happened this past year, he just didn't get the looks, he didn't get the love. But you would not go wrong by potentially putting him in there, putting him in the slot, or putting him later in there to figure out who are some of your sleeper wide receivers that maybe we hadn't heard about, or maybe just kind of fell off in the last couple of years.
So for me, a lot of these guys, at least in my opinion, are big names, but it's just the fact that this receiver class is so good. These guys are probably at earliest third round, but most of them are probably day 3 in that 4 through 7 rounds. And you're going to get difference makers in these 5 guys. I said him earlier, I got to shout out my guy, Ronnie Bell. Whether it's a returner, slot guy, he reminds me so much of Golden Tate, and just that physicality he plays with and that drive that somebody is going to get a late round difference maker here. He's going to want it more than the next guy. Stand out at Penn State, Parker Washington. This guy's a dog. It's just another guy that, again, is probably going to want it more than the guy playing across from him. And will do anything in his power to get the ball and get those yards. guy that might sneak into the third round here, Bryce Ford Wheaton out of West Virginia.
Yes.
Very solid player, big body. Can be an absolute difference maker on the outside. Another Big Ten guy, Rakeem Jarrett from Maryland. Just physical specimen. Another big time difference maker if you get him in the right situation. And a guy that his name's definitely been said over the past few years, but he gets overshadowed by his teammates from the 2021 season in Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. It's Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. And my big thing for him, and I guess Bell as well, they're difference makers blocking on the outside. They are nasty run blockers, and I love seeing that from a wide receiver. But he's got the ability to get the ball all over the field too. I love what Xavier Hutchinson brings to the table, and he's going to be a day 3 pick and going to be an absolute steal. He's a guy I'm going to look for in dynasty leagues. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I know. I love that. I absolutely love that. And you look, we all look at Purdy's success last year, and we're like, oh man, where'd this guy come from? But if you've been watching, if you've watched Iowa State teams, especially 2 years ago, Purdy had weapons all around. We know what Breece Hall did, like you mentioned, and Xavier Hutchinson 100% on the same board. I love that. I was telling Will about that guy. The guy can ball. He has the size, and he might not have had the best year. Obviously, the quarterback switch, but he's gonna succeed wherever he goes. And then they have the guy that Baltimore picked up at tight end, Charlie Kohler, who bodied guy that ran up the middle, definitely distanced himself from the linebackers, and was able to catch over the safeties. I mean, he had talent on that team, so I'm 100% with you. Love Rakeem Jarrett, yes, Maryland guy. Our guy Will loves him. Got to shout out a guy I shouted out on Wednesday. 5'11", 187. I know this is kind of hurts your heart. Jalen Reed, but the guy's a baller.
I was gonna say him, but I left him specifically for you. That dude's a baller.
He is, man. And like I mentioned on the other show, going to that Wisconsin game and seeing him up close and person. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you're from where we were sitting on the stands, you ain't gonna see him unless you're looking on the jumbotron. He's small. Yeah. He's a shrimp out there, but in that he's lightning. I mean, he sat there and he had a couple returns in the game. I believe he had a touchdown, number of catches where he's just in a game that was very close knit. Like you mentioned, went to overtime. He was one of those deciding factors. He was the difference in that game. And I think he's going to be one kind of like Zay Flowers and Josh Downs that you can put in the slot, but you're also going to put him at kick return. You're also going to put him at some other positions, getting gimmick plays. Get him he's an athlete. Get the guy the ball, and he's a fiery competitor. I mean, you can't you look at the size and know what kind of dog you have. And I mean, this guy is a fierce competitor, and I love that. Jonathan Mingo. I mean, anytime you got a 6'2", 220 guy that can run a 4.40, I'm gonna need that in my life. One guy I was talking about earlier, those Virginia wide receivers, Dontavion Wicks at 6'1", 206. These guys, it's the size, it's the size and the ability. I mean, with Wicks, he has elite balance. He can tightrope down the sidelines, and he comes in and out of his breaks with explosion. And the burst is great, but that stop on a dime. You know what I mean? Where he can sit there, come out of his break, stop. Right. And that's something that I really think is going to benefit him in the next level. Here's a guy that dropped. He dropped obviously because of an injury. But before he dropped, before he got hurt, I'm sitting here thinking this guy might be one of the best wide receivers in the nation. Out of Maryland, Dante Demas Jr. Had a nasty knee injury. But before, I mean, the size, the hands, 6'3", 212, still runs a 4.5 40. And I mean, he was like a pro style X-type wide receiver, big, he's tall. I mean, you could just see him like when he was catching or come back on like a hitch, it was almost like one of those big body guys in the paint in basketball. He's boxing out the guy behind him. So he's catching the ball, and it's either I'm catching it or nobody's. You're not going to come behind him and swipe him down because he has the strength to keep that thing. So I love that. The injury obviously, put him down a little bit, but he's going to be all right, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, hopefully the rehab and everything has gone well, but he's definitely going to get it. And then you got a couple guys. Antoine Green, I want to talk about. 6'2", 199. He's got 4.4 speed. He's not going to sit here and burn you straight line right down the field. Okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think he does, and he did great this past year, is he finds holes. He finds the open seams. He finds holes in the zone. He can come out there in a route and just be on the same page with the quarterback where he can just sit there. He can get open to a spot, sit there, and make himself available. And when he gets there, those hands. He has extremely strong hands to where, like I said about Dante Divas, you're not coming and swiping it down and the ball's just popping out. He's sitting here holding on to that. And very underrated out of North Carolina because of Downs, obviously. And then Drake May got so much love. But I really feel like he's going to definitely be beneficial to some team out there. And I think there's a number of guys, but I think off top, those are the guys, in my opinion, that if I'm looking at, like you said, they might not be as well known, but on our books, they're a lot higher than maybe they might be on the depth chart or the top 100 wide receivers or whatever. You know what I mean?
And think about this. We're saying there's still guys that we're missing. We've named about 20 guys today.
Right.
This wide receiver class is insane this year for that reason alone.
Yes.
You're going to get undrafted guys that are going to make 53-man rosters and succeed.
Yeah.
Like, this class is ridiculous this year.
And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where these guys play. Like, where these guys, get picked up. But I just want to see how they are able to mesh in the offense. I look at the guys, like I mentioned, out of North Carolina with Antoine Green and Josh Downs. You look at Josh Downs a couple years back when you had the studs and De'Ami Browns and the Daz Newsomes and all those talent, all those guys. He was in the back burner. Like, I mean, we had so much talent that he wasn't the guy. But once those guys left, you start to see him come to fruition to the point where last year he's elite, or he's playing at least at elite level. And then you got an Antoine Green who just essentially took the role of Josh Downs as the Mr. Nobody. But when Josh Downs got triple covered, you have Green going down the field. And a lot of times people might overlook that because it's not, like you said, they're not the top guy, but it's contribution to a team. You know what I mean?
That's Ronnie Bell to a T. Like,
yes.
Everyone was looking at Roman Wilson, AJ Henning, all these guys because they were the flashy down the field guys. But what you don't realize is Ronnie Bell, and I didn't realize this until later in the season when I looked at the numbers too. Ronnie Bell ran away with the lead receiver. Yep. He was the top in receptions and yards, but he did it the right way. He was that 10 to 15 yard guy. When you needed that third down conversion, he was your guy. Like, he just sneaky solid. And just, if you put his numbers, it stacks up against the top guys in the nation last year.
Oh, yeah. And outside of numbers, one of the things that really impresses me, especially about a wide receiver, is when you're in a game that means something, and, things might not have gone your way early. And I know it's a bad memory, but I'm going to go to the TCU game. You guys go down 14-0 early, and, it was looking rough. Bell was one of those that stepped up and really took over the game. And that's one of those where I remember I don't know if I texted you this or not, but I remember I was sitting there like, Ronnie Bell.
Yeah.
Who's this guy? Oh, okay. All right, right. Okay.
He was a guy that was getting like second, third round consideration in last year's draft with those receivers.
Yeah.
And then week 1 tore his ACL. He was done for the season.
Yeah.
So then it was just like, we all just assumed, okay, this is the last we've seen of him. He's going to the NFL. He's going pro. And then kind of right at that deadline, we hadn't heard. And it's just like, what's going on? He's like, no, I'm coming back. And it was just like, oh, damn, okay. Like,
right?
Yeah. And then it seemed like he got lost in the shuffle, but it was just like 5 yards here, 10, 15, 10 here, like just solid. chunk gains, and led the team in receiving this year.
Yeah. And that's what I like. Those are the receivers I love. Obviously, my guy in Washington is Terry McLaurin, who until this year was very quiet, but the production spoke for itself. That's what I like about the Ronnie Bells. He's not as flashy, or at least to me, from what I've seen, he's not. He's just, let's get the job done. It's about the next
your
play,
leader.
the next play. And I love that. So he's definitely going to help a team. But look, speaking of where they're going to go, speaking of where they're going to get picked up, let's go ahead and go back to a year ago. We mentioned it earlier. There was an elite run on wide receivers that just they were just all made contributions. You had the Garrett Wilsons. You had Jahan Dotson, Olave. Even James Williams came out there and did his thing. Mechie got picked up. Obviously, he got the injury. But there are so many wide receivers that got picked up, and not only got picked up, but made immediate impacts on their team. Last year, coming out from where we looked at it, who was your top 5 wide receivers from last year that maybe not how they got drafted, but just in production and how they did?
Yeah, so number 5 for me is Drake London. Had a solid year. Obviously, he was the first guy taken. It was solid. Didn't have good quarterback play. Yes. Let's see what happens with their quarterback situation this year and see if he can improve on that. I'll say solid year. Number 4 for me was Christian Watson. He was Aaron Rodgers' number 1. I know people say Lazard, but Watson was that go-to guy.
Watson.
I mean, you saw it week 1 when they played Minnesota, and play 1, Rodgers ain't going to Lazard. He's taking that deep shot to Watson, and unfortunately, he dropped it.
Right.
But Rodgers went to him early and often, and once he got settled in, man, he was a difference maker. Yep. He's number 4 for me. Number 3, Sid's going to love this one. It's George Pickens. How he slid to the middle of the second round, I have no idea.
Yeah.
This was my number 2 receiver going into last year's draft. I mean, part of it was a little bit of bias wanting to push the Ohio State guys down, but
you wouldn't be you if you didn't do that. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You've been nice enough, all right?
I have the Buckeye number 1 this year, so I learned my lesson. But yeah, Pickens he's a dog, man. So many elite catches this year. Just highlight real plays. Pickett to Pickens is going to be a nasty combo for years to come.
Yes.
They got their guy, man. But 2 and 1 are the 2 Ohio State guys. I got Olave number 2. Again, pretty poor quarterback play last year.
Right.
But Olave still was a difference maker, man. He was solid down the field. I can't wait to see him and Derek Carr go at it.
Man,
it's gonna be fireworks, man.
Absolutely.
He's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. Number 1, it's got to be the reigning offensive rookie of the year, Garrett Wilson.
Awesome. Yep.
And if he gets Aaron Rodgers, look out. This is gonna be. It's going to be a number 1 receiver in fantasy. Like, this is easily. You're going to get a number 1 receiver. He's an absolute weapon out there, can do it all. Short, deep, excellent route runner, great hands. He was far and away the number 1 for me this year.
Oh, I love that. My switch would be number 5. And it is because we know where he got picked last year. I love Drake London and everything. But like you said, the production left me wanting a little bit. You know what I mean? And then I have to go home and be biased. And I'm going to put number 5, Jahan Dotson. In my opinion.
I won't argue with you on that.
In my opinion, before his injury, he was on track to be the rookie of the year. I mean, he was right up there with it. He had 4 touchdowns when we had Carson Wentz in there. Got hurt, came back, and then was able to get himself 2 or 3 more touchdowns. And this is behind Curtis Samuel. This is behind Terry McLaurin. So this is what we talk about. We talk about putting the guy in the slot. So I absolutely love that. Who was your 4?
Watson.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page with that one. And the only reason I put Watson ahead of Jahan Dotson is because of how he was able to play later in the season.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at that first play of the game without really looking at the fact that, like you said, Aaron Rodgers didn't go to the guy that he's known for several years. He went to the rookie. And
which
albeit,
doesn't
yes,
happen with Rodgers.
exactly. And albeit, yes, that he dropped it, and it looked like, yeah, he punished them because he, they weren't on the same page for a while. But once they clicked, night. Once they clicked, it was over. When he had the 3-touchdown game where he's just becoming a fantasy football elite wide receiver towards the end of the year, you're just looking at it like, woo. Let's not forget the Packers started to come back in until you beat them. You know what I mean? They started to come
if
back.
If they won, they were in the playoffs that game.
Right. And Christian Watson was a huge part of that. Our three is the same. I can't shout out to Sid. I can't go anywhere else than George Pickens. And if anything, the fact that Matt Canada was there, as their OC, so they weren't getting it. And the fact that you had Pickett and Trubisky throwing to him, and then the O-line wasn't great. There was so many other factors, and still you wanted to watch the Steelers play just so you might see that one amazing catch by George Pickens from Kenny Pickett. So, I can't go anywhere else with that. And the number 1 and 2, you're absolutely right. They're Ohio State boys. Olave, shout out to the Saints. I was in New Orleans for the draft last year. I may or may not have traded some crawfish for that pick. We worked it out, but we both got solid wide receivers. Hey, and Olave, and he, like you said, he did it with Jameis Winston. He did it with Andy Dalton. You know what I mean? Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
These are the guys he had thrown in the ball, and still he was elite. And then number 1, I mean, you have to. I don't understand when you have a guy that has quarterbacks that just aren't on par and he's still contributing. I mean, think about right now who was quarterbacking in New York this year. Yeah, what? Joe Flacco.
If you look at QB rating,
yeah.
For all, I think it was 75, 76 quarterbacks that qualified. Those were the 3 worst quarterbacks he had throwing him the ball.
Oh my God.
It
was rough. Yeah.
And you might get Aaron Rodgers now?
Right. Good.
I know Rodgers didn't play great, but
he'll be fine.
Aaron Rodgers.
Right. And he's getting Breece Hall, Michael Carter's got the wide receivers. He has the line. Oh, good gracious. And rightfully so. Hopefully the Jets can finally get out of this misery. Hey, Jets, Detroit, Washington, all of us on the up and up.
Yeah.
New day. It's a new day. Let's go.
Love to see it.
But yeah, you have to go with the rookie of the year, Garrett Wilson, with who he had thrown to him. And I remember mid-season, I'm like, oh yeah, Garrett Wilson is on the Jets. But they were so bad at quarterback that it was just but
they were hard to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're still balling. And shout out to him. Shout out to those Ohio State receivers. But that's my top 5. Not too much different, but I had to show Jahan Dotson some love because he showed up early. And I mean, there was one play that did it for me. We're playing the Giants after he gets hurt. Heineke throws him a pass. He catches it. He's running. He's starting to he was on the outside, kind of coming in towards the middle. He's about to get just destroyed. This safety has just eyes on him and comes right in. And what we know in NCAA 14 as the circle button, he sits there and puts the foot in the ground and does a whoop, a little whirly bird spin. And you can just hear the announcers like, oh, he's going to get, oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, he spun out of that for the touchdown. Are you kidding me? Like that.
It was very reminiscent of that Braxton Miller spin when he was at Ohio State.
Right.
The one that just, when you think of spin moves, you think of that one, you think of the one Jahan Dotson pulled off. Yeah. It was an elite level spin move.
It was amazing. And it was one of those where we were just like, oh, because we were losing in that game. It was like, oh, here we go. And it's like, oh, new life. Yeah. Now we ended up tying that game.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was the one you tied, right?
Yeah. But still, shout out to Jahan Dotson. Because, again, we're talking about, who did he have as quarterback? He had Carson for most of the season. Shout out to Taylor Heineke. But when Carson was in there, Carson Wentz was finding Jahan Dotson. Taylor Heineke has his guys. He has Samuel. He has Terry McLaurin. And he's going to give those guys a shot. And sometimes, especially when Heineke first got back in there, or when Jahan Dotson got back from injury and Heineke was in there, it took a while for them to kind of get on the same page, So that I think that played a part, but still, you just the ability. And then you go back and look at Jahan Dotson in college, and you think about who was throwing to him in college. Sean Clifford.
Sean Clifford, yeah.
Gutsy, gritty, but as my guy Will told me, not the best. Penn State, ain't like him too much. He was there for 80 years, so.
They didn't have anyone good enough to push him out. That's all I can say about
it. There it is.
He was good enough to start for 6 years. So
Exactly. So, yeah, hey, I love what all these guys bring to the table. And, hey, I'm going to go with the question I always ask you before we get close to ending this. Mr. Irrelevant. Who is your Mr. Irrelevant wide receiver? Do you have one?
Man.
Yeah, I know.
We listed like 20 guys. I like your boy Antoine from North Carolina there. If he's still there at that point, that's a solid pickup. And I think just with like you said, the list of receivers that we named off today, you're gonna get an absolute difference maker there, and I think he could be that guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So hey, there it is. That's our last year's top 5 wide receivers. Stay tuned this year to see who's going to be that guy, who's going to be the Mr. Relevant, who's going to be the top guys, and who's going to make a contribution to your team that you might not have seen coming. But look, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, where is it? Oh, there it is. If you don't know, I played running back. My guy right here, he played O-lineman. Sometimes, we're running down the field, running it down their throats, score a touchdown. Then all of a sudden, coach wants to call trick play. Nope. When we go in the huddle, we're going not for 1, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going for 2 right at the middle. Yes, sir. Going for 2. Alex, what you got this week?
So you started off the show talking about how we're getting into that time of year, spring games, all that. Michigan spring game's actually today.
Really?
So, it's today.
Let's go.
So that's something I'm going to be tuning into. College football fans, buckle up. We're getting right back into it. We're getting into that time of year again. Let's go.
I love it. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, shoot! I'm about to let me go ahead and tune. Might need to go to the store, get some food, sit back, drink some brews. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one.
I cannot wait. I'm gonna try and find a way to watch it all the way from here and just sit back and enjoy.
Absolutely. Hey, yeah, my going for 2 is this is a crapshoot. Like, let's be honest.
It is.
The best guy to the Mr. Irrelevant, we really don't know, because you don't know where these guys are going. You don't know what's going to happen as far as injuries. And then there are external issues. You just don't know about a lot of this stuff that's going on. So for however much detail and study and research, all that stuff that we do, we could still be completely wrong, and we could be completely right. You never know. So don't put so much into all the hype and all the things going. Watch the play. Watch what happens when the guys get on the field, how they play, how they hold themselves off the field. And even with that, you still could be wrong. So that's the fun of it, though. That's the fun of it.
Oh, the best part of it.
Absolutely. Yo, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being here with us on this Saturday morning. Let's talk college football. It is always a pleasure to be with my guy, Mr. Alex Loosemore, who pray for him. People pray for him, because he's got a tough matchup against
it's gonna be a dogfight. It's gonna be
if you hold him under 200 yards, is that a success?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Especially
200 yards rushing in a win.
Like I said, run defense hasn't been tested yet, so I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Right. You don't have to worry about that pass defense, because
load up the box.
Yes, and so we will see what kind of misery Temple is going to bring me today. I am this close because, like I said, we went undefeated. And obviously, the first 3 games were, not they're a little poor or weren't as good as they had been over the last couple of years because I wanted to see how far we can go with the undefeated. But now with this year, I'm getting to the point where if we go undefeated again and I stay here, I might try to switch us out and switch us out of the American.
I believe the same thing with JMU.
Maybe hit the ACC, maybe hit somewhere where we're going to have some elite talent each week and really test how good our guys are. Because we still got guys in there that are mid to low 70s, if not lower. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially the depth on O-line. So it's going to be quite interesting to see. But look, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to let you go. We hope you have a great Saturday. For my guy, Alex Loosemore, it's your boy, Sean Spencer. Enjoy your day, and let's talk college football. Let's get it. Peace.